Welcome to Z's and Threes Special Edition from the road. A crossover with your premier source for college football content, 2stripesCPD, also found on YouTube as Colton Denning, a.k.a. my brother. Joining me today, as it was a 13-game slate in the NBA, but 11 were clunkers. There were two good games. We will break all those down, but the fun part of the show will be in house shoes, as we will break down the 12 college football playoff teams as their NBA equivalents for this season. So let's get you caught up, and then we will do that portion of the show. But before we do, if you like the show, please do like and subscribe. As mentioned, 13 games, 11 clunkers. Two were good. We'll start with the group chat game of the night. It was in San Antonio. The Atlanta Hawks, San Antonio Spurs picking up DeAndre Hunter that had the dunk of the night on Victor Wembanyama. It tied the ball game with under 12 seconds left in regulation, matching technicals for the two as Hunter hovers over Wembanyama with the point with the words. Spurs turn it over on the inbound as the game was tied at this point. As said, Hawks get a chance to win the game. They cannot as Trae Young dances with Wemby, but the ball is blocked by Wembanyama. Overtime we go. Second overtime of the season for Atlanta. They won their first against the Lakers. First overtime of the season for the Spurs, and it was all Spurs, all Victor Wembanyama in overtime. They outscore the Hawks 13-6. 8 points from Wemby. The Spurs victorious on the evening. Only other good game of the night, the Nuggets were locked into another tight one in Portland against the Trailblazers. The Nuggets, as they wont to do this season, find themselves in another big hole, down 17 to start the fourth quarter. They win the fourth quarter 37-22, but they do not win the game. Why? Because Anthony Simons has a beautiful buzzer-beating kiss of the glass drive on Russell Westbrook as the clock expires. He had a team-high 28 points on the night, 15 and 13 from DeAndre Ayton. Jokic had 34, 6 and 8. Denver stays in their win one, lose one habit. It's another loss for the Nuggets to a bottom 5 team in the league. They have lost to the Pelicans, the Wizards, and now the Blazers. The trade whirlwinds are beginning to swirl around the Denver Nuggets, and potential landing spots for names like Jimmy Butler have been thrown out there. Also, Zach LaVine remains to be seen. Do the Nuggets do something? 126-124, the Blazers victorious. When I say there were some clunkers, boy, were there some clunkers and some unexpected results across the other 11 games. I don't know what it was, the long break, whatever it was. Let's start with Jazz Pistons. The Jazz lead by 29 at the end of the first quarter. They maintained the lead throughout. They grab a season-high 62 rebounds. The Pistons let me down once again. Not about that life against the worst team in the West. A 126-119 Utah victory. 30 from Colin Sexton, 29 from Keontae George. Pretty nice bang out from him on the evening. 27 from Lauri Markkanen. Thunder Magic. The Thunder recovering from their Vegas hangover. Everybody jumping off the Thunder bandwagon because they lost a meaningless game towards the record against the Bucks. Well, they took control of this one in the second quarter against the undermanned Orlando Magic. The lead grows to 23. They win by 6, 105-99. SGA had a game-high 35 on 15 of 26, shooting. The Thunder are 21-5, and they have a win streak of 6 in a row, as that cup final loss does not count to the record. Longest win streak in the league. Magic fall to 17-12. They have lost now 3 in a row. Hornets, Wizards, no Brandon Miller, ankle injury. He was questionable, so that good news, as he hopefully will not be out long. Could have used the help tonight. The Wizards make 17 threes. Jordan Poole made 5 of those. Take the lead to start the fourth, did the Wizards. They win 123-114, a game-high 34 from the Melo Ball, 13 dimes, 4 rebounds. Washington gets their 4th win of the season. Shows you how weird of a night it was. Gets weirder. The Bulls, Celtics. Chicago closes mega in the 4th, 35-22 with a 14-6 run in the final 5 minutes. A season-high 36 for Zach LaVine. Who's interested? You want to get LaVine? Bulls want to trade him. 6 of 11 from deep was LaVine. The Bulls built beat the Celtics at their own game. They make 19 threes to Boston's 14. The Celtics were 14 of 56. They attempted 56 threes in this game. Tatum had 31 points, 11 threes. He made 4 of them. Jaylen Brown goes 1 of 8 from deep. So surprisingly, the Celtics catch an L on the evening. Nets, Raptors. Raptors led by double digits late in the third. Cam Johnson for the Nets. Who wants him? He's available. Scored 15 points in the fourth. So Levine and Johnson both boosting their trade stock. He accounted for 65% of the team's points in the fourth. They outscored the Raptors 31-18. The Nets win 101-94. They stay in 10th. They are tanking very hard. Pels Rockets. Pelicans only lead for the opening buckets of the game. The Rockets go up 26 at one point. They finish up 20. It was a night of blowouts. We'll get to an even bigger one here in a sec. 133-113, the victory for the Rockets. Season high 34 dimes for Houston as Dillon Brooks ties a career high with 6 three-mades. He scores 26, a game-high 34 from Jalen Green. Houston, third in the West, 3.5 games behind OKC. Big gap starting to develop between those two. Blowout of the night. How about this? Warriors, Grizzlies. Memphis, wire-to-wire, a 57-point victory. The Grizzlies make a season-high 27 threes, 27 of 48 from deep. They shoot 56.3% from deep, 54% from the field. They score 144 points. Their season high. They have a season-high 38 assists, season-high 60 rebounds. The Warriors trying to incorporate Dennis Schroeder. He just goes 2 of 12 with 5 points. Steph Curry, 0 for 7 in this contest. 0 for 6 from 3. Just the 4th time in his career he's held without a made field goal. The last was March 8th of 2018. Grizzlies keep hold of second in the West, their 19th victory. More strange games tonight. Pacers, Suns. Suns hold the lead halfway through the first, but it's all Pacers from there. The home team struggled tonight as well. The Pacers, 37-24 third. They lead by 19. They win by 9. 120-111. Indianapolis, a game-high 37 from KD, but for the Pacers, 7 players with 11 or more points. Pascal Siakam led the team, 25 points, 18 rebounds. Pacers have won 3 straight. Both teams 8th in their respective conferences. Busy night. Still more to go. Clippers, Mavericks. No Luka, heel injury. No Kyrie, shoulder injury. 39-28 third and 29-18 fourth in favor of the Clippers. Gets them the victory by 23 over the Mavs. Norman, the air fryer all-star in my opinion, pal, with a game-high 29 points, 24 from James Harden, 21 and 15 from Ivica Zubac. Zoo. Hold the Mavs to 39.5% shooting. Mavericks 17 and 10. Clippers 16 and 12. Knicks, Wolves. This one was a national game as Karl Anthony Towns back in Minnesota, and it was a blowout that was at the hands of the Knicks to the Wolves. They led at the end of one quarter, did the home team, the Wolves, but not again. Knicks built it to 36. They win by 26. Towns 32, 20, and 6. The first player in NBA history with 30-plus points, 20-plus rebounds, 5-plus assists, and 5-plus threes made in regulation. Anthony Edwards scores 17. Julius Randle, 24 against his old team. The Knicks, third in the East by a game at 17 and 10. The Wolves, 2 games above 500, 7th in the West. Final game of the night, Kings-Lakers. A night where LeBron jumps to first all-time in minutes played, passing Kareem. His team leads for all but a smidge of the second quarter, winning 113-110. LeBron, 19, 6, and 7, a team-high 25 from Austin Reeves. 21-18 from Anthony Davis. The Kings were led by Fox, who had 26 points on the night. The Lakers make more free throws than the Kings attempt, 25-22. 8 home teams lose in a 57-point blowout. Yeah, it was a wacky night in the NBA. I think everybody is getting over that small break. You're coming off the cup, whatever it may be. Heavy pour leading scorer of the night. Forgot to mention, Victor Wembanyama had 42 in his team's victory. Pretty good defensive game as well, as he had 4 blocks. Dunk of the night. Keontae George, as I mentioned, had a pretty nice dunk. Go ahead and check that one out. The dunk score was high. Performance of the night, I'm going to give it to Karl Anthony Towns. A lot of emotional juice in that game, going back against his former team, but showing him he is loving his time in the Big Apple. So that's it for the Thursday night as we set our sights towards the weekend. I'm going to give you the news, and then we're going to take you through some college football NBA team equivalents. Light news day as the class of 2025 Hall of Fame eligible candidates announced, and notable names you see graphically over here to my right. This is everybody, some WNBA legends, big coaching names in there as well. Mickey Arison, the Heat owner, but NBA-wise, Carmelo Anthony, Billy Donovan, Mark Gasol, Dwight Howard, and Amari Stoudemire are all eligible for this year's Hall of Fame class. I think Howard, Anthony, both probably locks. Remains to be seen on Marc Gasol and Amari Stoudemire. So that for the injuries and news on the day. Okay, special edition. I promised you guys crossover. It is the holiday time. Hopefully everybody's spending time with their family. I am locked in. My brother, Colton Denning, owner, proprietor, writer, administrator, however many other titles would you put to 2stripesCPD. I will put all the information below, but the premier source for college football on the internet. If you are a college football fan that actually likes college football, that's the tagline, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, then go check him out. And I thought with the football playoffs starting tomorrow, 12 teams, but we will see 4 matchups, right?
4 matchups total, 1
This
Friday,
weekend.
3 Saturday.
Yeah, so we would go through the college football equivalent of their NBA teams this season. I'm the NBA guy. He's the college football guy. So we will start with the first matchup. So we'll see his take and my take. You're a listener of the show, right?
Nightly.
Season 3s?
Every night.
Yeah. So he's informed on the NBA, but we will see. First matchup is Indiana, Notre Dame. I had seen this is the first time in college football playoff history that in-state teams play one another. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Who is your take in the game football-wise, first and foremost?
Hard to go against Notre Dame with the way that they've been playing, especially defensively. Indiana, though, has such an awesome offense, and they've scored on basically everybody they've played except for Ohio State. But it's a really
We're also wearing the jerseys of our favorite teams, Texas, Ohio State. All right, so let's start with Indiana. Who's their NBA equivalent?
For me, it was the Grizzlies.
The Grit, why?
Indiana has their second nationally in points behind Miami.
Won by
this
57
season.
tonight.
And Memphis, of course, is playing a super high-flying style, scoring more than anybody in the league. And you don't look at either of those teams and say, hey, they're going to go win a championship. But no matter who they're playing against, if you have to play an offense like that, and it's high-octane, it's high-paced, and you know they're going to score and have opportunities, that's something tough for any defense to go against. So that'll be a lot of fun. And I think that's a perfect kind of matchup, even if there isn't a Ja Morant on Indiana.
Yeah, this was the hard part of this. I put down for Indiana, I had the Atlanta Hawks. Because I think, with Atlanta, they can play with the big boys. We've seen Atlanta beat the Celtics, beat the Cavs, but they can also lose to anybody. It wouldn't be a surprise if India. So I have the Hawks. You have the Grizzlies. Pretty good comp set there. All right, Notre Dame. This one's going to be fun. Who you got?
This was tough. I picked the Cavs.
The Cavs?
The Cavs, mostly because both teams are very, and I may say this a few times throughout this, very workmanlike in their approach. And it was tough to pick a team for Notre Dame because they lost to Northern Illinois early in the season. And a lot of the good teams in the NBA, you don't see them play a lot of clunkers against bad teams. But with the Cavs,
this year,
the thing I went back to was the back-to-back losses to the Hawks. And not that the Hawks are a bad team, but ever since then, they've kind of taken care of their business, whereas Notre Dame has kind of done the same. And they've relied on their defense, and even though there's Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and you know they have those star players, they play a team style, and that's how they get it done. It's kind of how Notre Dame's gotten it done, too, this season.
I think Notre Dame, I zoomed out very far on this one. I said Notre Dame, the Knicks. And I said because the Knicks, I think that they're always talked about, but are they ever really in the conversation? Is Notre Dame a threat to win the playoff this year?
I don't think so, because with Notre Dame, you just have to see it to believe it.
And are the Knicks really a threat to win the NBA title?
It's funny because I have a comparison to the Knicks in this coming up later on that I think is kind of along the same wavelength.
All right, so that is the first matchup. That is the game that you will see Friday to kick off the first iteration of the 12-team college football playoffs. So we still have 10 more teams to get to. All right, I went to Texas, my alma mater, national champs Vince Young. So I'm interested to see what you have for this Texas-Clemson matchup because I think this is where the comparisons can be interesting. Let's start with Clemson. This is a team that has been very relevant in college football for the last decade, but the glimmer has kind of dissipated a little bit over the last few or so years. And if they don't beat SMU, they wouldn't have got into the playoff, by my understanding.
Yeah, they would have been out.
Okay, so Clemson, Dabo Swinney, they're the last team that got in the 12 seed. Who's their equivalent?
I feel like we may be the same here. The Los Angeles Lakers.
Oh, no.
Was my pick.
No.
Because, like you said, we know who they are. We know that they've won. We know that even the Lakers, when LeBron's been there, they won that title in the last few years. It hasn't quite been what it was for that championship season. They've kind of downgraded a little bit. And with Clemson, we've seen that since their glory run in the 2010s, in the late 2010s, and the early 2020s. And so for me, there isn't a LeBron on Clemson. Maybe Dabo's the LeBron of Clemson. But to me, they're a team that you look at and you say, okay, they're good enough to get in. Are they good enough to make any noise? I don't think so.
So I thought in similar vein, and also a team in California. I said the Warriors.
Yeah.
I said the Warriors because I think they're hanging on to an era of past, and they both have coaches that have succeeded, Steve Kerr, Dabo Swinney. But you fast forward maybe 2 years, and you could easily see both of those guys not being the head coaches, Dabo at Clemson or Steve Kerr at the Warriors, which I think most Warriors fans or people would say, oh, that's blasphemous, the Warriors without Kerr. But, era gone.
It always ends at some point.
Yeah. So, all right, interesting for Clemson. I like it. All right, Texas. Where are you going here with Texas?
I'm staying in state. I'm going with the Dallas Mavericks.
So am I.
Both teams
there we go.
have a grip of high-end talent with the Mavericks.
Yeah.
It's Luka, it's Kyrie and the rest of their cast. With Texas, it's Quinn Ewers is obviously going to get the credit as the quarterback, but they have a ton of other talent, whether it's the skill position or along the defensive line. And you look at this talent and say, okay, if they play up to their potential, if they play up to their max, they can win the national championship.
Dallas Mavericks, Final Four team last year. Texas almost in the championship game missed out. I mean, they got drilled by Washington last year. But
both teams made a run, and Texas had a chance there at the end to get to the national championship, and then you get to that final game, and who knows, you're 60 minutes away from the title. So both teams have made a run. Both teams have this talent. Can they do it again? I think you can make a case, absolutely, and you can also make a case that I don't know if they have enough to do it.
We'll see the Mavs win a title within the next 5 years, and I think we'll see Texas win a title. Could be this year for both teams. I agree with you because I said the comparisons, they've both won a title recently, and both of them are regarded as maybe some of the greatest championships in their sports history. The Dirk run, when Dirk carried that team over the trio in Miami, Vince Young against USC and the Rose Bowl there. But then, that's a long time ago now. Those were, 2006 and, that was 2012?
And especially in college football and in the NBA, 4 or 5 years is like a decade.
Yeah.
And a lot of other sports.
But they're both back relevant now. But also I think the comp sets with the head coaches, because I think I'd put this head coach that's there, but there's still just that little twinge of,
you're a little skeptical.
Jason Kidd, I think he disproved a lot of doubters, or proved a lot of doubters wrong last year on that run. And Sarkisian, with his second shot as redemption.
I was a doubter.
At
I
the
didn't
head
think they
coaching
could
level.
do it with him.
But still, if they don't break through. And I will leave it with this. Is Arch the Luka for Texas? Can he be?
We may see it on Saturday. There's a lot of people that want him in and have been begging for him to be in.
That's the first. This is the first one where we've been in agreement for Texas for the Dallas Mavs. So now that is 4 teams. So we still have 8 to go. Okay, on to this is what. Okay, what's your prediction, Texas Clemson?
I'm taking Texas.
Do you think it's going to be a close game?
There's a twinge of me that thinks Dabo Swinney, big game.
Oh.
Cade Klubnik's been playing under the radar really well at quarterback for Clemson all season, but that's more of a I'd like to see a close game thing than what I really think is probably going to happen.
Hopefully
I'm rolling
skunk.
Texas.
All right, let's stay in the state of Texas with the SMU Mustangs, who slide in as the 11 seed. Who do you got for SMU NBA equivalent?
Again with another Texas team. I'm staying in the state. I'm saying the Houston Rockets.
The Houston Rockets? Okay,
why?
Why?
These are two teams that are kind of...
Now, this, mind you, is a Rockets team that you said prior to listening and watching season 3s you knew nothing about.
Yeah, other than just knowing Jalen Green, and they've had a bunch
You
of
said
high
you couldn't
picks
have
recently.
picked Alperen Şengün out of a crowd of 2.
Not at all. Now, thanks to season 3s, I know.
There you go.
But I'm rolling with the Rockets for SMU because they're just kind of the new kids on the block, looking to make a name for themselves. And SMU is one of those teams that...
Which also, new kids, old kids, SMU does have a distinguished history in the game of football. And the Rockets do have titles a long time ago, though.
Yeah, and they're teams that I think in both of their sports have kind of... You hate to say you have house money to play with because when you have a championship on the line, you want to win it when you got the chance. But these are both teams that I think SMU, first year in the ACC, they get to the conference championship game, they make the 12-team playoff.
Should have won the conference
should have won it.
game.
And you look at the Rockets this year, and the season has to play out, but a successful season for the Rockets, I think, is kind of making that first step into the playoffs. And you have these kind of young guns. You have this team who could score and kind of get high octane when they need to. So I think staying in the state again for state of Texas, I like it.
Hey, you said young guns, and I had SMU as the Grizzlies, and I just said you have 2 franchises that are finally emerging to relevance from their sanctions. SMU's was a long time ago for the Grizzlies. It was some other sanctions for other things, but hey, maybe they're on their way. I like that. All right, let's go Penn State. Penn State is the 6th seed. What do you got for Penn State equivalent NBA?
This one was tough. I took the Minnesota Timberwolves.
The Wolves, okay.
They're 2 teams that Penn State catches so much flack because they don't beat
Play in
Ohio
very
State.
cold environments.
They don't beat Michigan, but they're always in the conversation. They're good enough to win 10 games. And if you look at Penn State's schedule this year, their best win was Illinois, and they lost to Oregon, and they lost to Ohio State. With the Timberwolves, I think you're looking at a team who the last few years, and last year especially, they've been good enough to build themselves within the conversation, but when it comes time to playing those teams who are either as good as them or better than them, do you expect the Timberwolves to win games like that or win series like that?
They won the Denver series last year in 7. They lost to Denver the year prior, and then I think the Denver series was their championship last year, and then they lose to Dallas in the Western Conference Finals, and I think that was a little bit of a letdown. Is there an Anthony Edwards on Penn State or no?
Tyler Warren, tight end. He won the Mackey Award for best tight end, and he's done everything for them this season. So I think if you're looking for that one guy who kind of fills that role, it's Tyler Warren.
This would refute my point that I'm making because I said Penn State would be the Orlando Magic, and I think for your average sports fan, if you said name one player on the Magic or name one player on Penn State, they would brick.
I can see that because Penn State really isn't. They're not in the casual conversation as much as they were back
for
in
a
the
6 seed too.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think you would know. All right, who are you taking in this game?
It's so hard to pick. It's so hard to pick against Penn State at home, but to me, you've seen.
This is an early game though, right? This is not night.
Not a night game.
Not night at Happy Valley.
But it is a whiteout.
Okay.
And you've seen James Franklin lose these big games back to back to back to back, and it really would be the cherry on top for him to.
Would he lose his job?
No, he wouldn't. But it would start a conversation at least that they finally, that Penn State is the team you look at that's benefited the most from the expanded playoff, where they haven't picked up any marquee wins, but they still make it. They're kind of the poster child for being able to get in without
good enough, but not good enough,
without doing the legwork to get in. And so finally making it and losing to what your average Penn State fan or regular college football fan would be like, they lost to SMU at home. Like, what's up?
Most
with
people
that?
still think that SMU's in the American Athletic
Yeah.
Conference.
So I think if you look at that, and I'll go against my head and just pick with my heart and say that SMU wins.
All right. Well, we'll see. That game Saturday morning to begin the 3-game slate on Saturday. Okay, we still have half the field to get to, one more matchup, and then the 4 teams that got byes. Okay, so we went through my team, the Texas Longhorns. You did not go to Ohio State, but our mother went to Ohio State. But you've been...
My grades were good enough to get into Ohio State.
You've been an adopted Ohio State fan for a very long time. So we will save them. Let's start with the 9. This is the 8-9 matchup. And I think this one probably has the most juice in terms of this may be the most watched college football game this year. Start with Tennessee. Who you got?
I have for Tennessee, and maybe this is tough because they don't kind of have the guys that your average fan would say for this that lines up, but I'm going to say the Phoenix Suns.
Okay.
And much like the Suns have KD and they have Booker, Tennessee does have stars. Running back Dylan Sampson is one of the most electric runners in college football, and he kind of got overshadowed because of what Ashton Genty did. And every other running back, it was just like, oh, they're having a nice season, but Genty's having this godlike season. But
Cam Scatterbo.
Yeah, we'll talk about Arizona State here in a little.
That's what I know from watching.
But Dylan Sampson had a phenomenal season in the SEC, and then defensive end James Pierce Jr. was one of the most talked about.
Top pick?
Yeah, one of the most talked about defensive players coming into the year. The raw numbers weren't anything crazy. I think he had 7.5 sacks. But those are the two guys and then you can even throw in, I guess, Cooper Mays, the center, who's a pretty phenomenal player. If you want to add in a Bradley Beal for your big 3.
Doesn't even play anymore.
Yeah. And so I think that's kind of your player-by-player comparison. And Tennessee's path to winning not only this game but making a run in the college football playoff, it goes through those guys. If they play well, that's going to be Tennessee's best chance to win, much like with the Suns. If their best players play well, they're going to have their best chance to win.
I went in similar vein. I went with the Bucks, and I don't know Tennessee at all like you do. But I don't think they obviously have a Giannis. But I think that they are, I wrote down, talked about in much higher regard as a team than the results warrant. But it wouldn't be a complete surprise if they went on a run. We just saw the Milwaukee Bucks go on a run to win the NBA Cup. Now, does that mean much? I don't know. Ask the Lakers last year. But yeah, I had Tennessee as the Bucks. All right, this one I'm interested in because this is a man who is out on Ohio State, out on the Ohio State coaching staff. 8 seed Ohio State Buckeyes. Who do you got?
This is brutal because you know how deep into the Ohio State hive mind that I'm in, and deep in the mud and deep in the muck in the Ohio State internet. And I think about watching last year's NBA playoffs, and that's really when I super kind of lock into the NBA. And the most vivid memory I have of last year's playoffs was Game 7, Pacers, Knicks.
Yeah. And
the Knicks just getting smoked at home. And the whole broadcast was just like a funeral for the Knicks.
Mike Breen, minus points for that performance.
You said Notre Dame for the Knicks?
Yeah.
I'm saying Ohio State for the Knicks.
Okay.
And you know how much that kills me to say. But you're looking at a brand name who's won a lot of games recently, and they've kept themselves in the conversation. But one who, and maybe I'm just too close to the situation, I don't trust to get over the top. I think they can beat Tennessee, but do I think they can go and beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl after that? They didn't do it earlier in the season. Even if they did that, are they going to be able to beat whoever they play next and get to a national championship? I don't have the faith to say they will, so I'm going to say that they're the New York Knicks.
Well, I went with the other marquee franchise, and Ohio State, the Lakers. And I had said fading empire. It seems like it should always work on paper, but then it doesn't. Why doesn't it? Well, there's a common linkage. The state of Ohio. The expectations are always there for both the Lakers and Ohio State. All right, game prediction. Honest game prediction.
I'm taking Tennessee. And I don't want to.
You just want Tennessee to win because you want Ryan Day.
I want Ryan Day out. He needs to be gone immediately.
Okay. So, Would it surprise you if Ohio State wins?
No,
Okay.
because they're good enough to win, and I think this is a matchup where there isn't anything Tennessee really does where I would say, okay, they can exploit this over and over again. Maybe it is James Pierce Jr. off the edge or running the ball up the middle with Dylan Sampson, but Tennessee hasn't been as consistent as people would think with the Josh Heupel offense of what they were a couple of years ago when they made a run. But I think this is the one game where, like you said, it's going to be the most watched game. It's going to be that night game. It's going to be in
Ohio State
Columbus,
fans have been begging for
prime
it, wanting
time.
to play at night. So.
It's going to be loud, Scarlet the Shoe. It's going to be an incredible environment. But this is the type of environment for Ryan Day, and we know this is as Cowboys fans too, where it's just
I haven't told the audience that
it's setting up for the fall, and I think that this is the ultimate version of the fall. By the way, who would be the Ryan Day of the Lakers? The genie bus?
Probably Rob Pelinka.
Has he won a title though?
No, oh God. Yeah, wow. All right, so that is all of the matchups that will happen this weekend. Friday, 1 game. Saturday, 3 games. 4 teams earned byes through the wonky conference championship. We're not even going to try to fix all that. I'm too busy trying to fix the NBA. Colton's trying to fix college football on 2 stripes. Nobody seems to listen to us, but we're not going to stop trying. So let's do the final 4 seeds. Okay, 4 bye seeds, 4 byes, top 4 seeds. Oregon, number 1, champions of the Big Ten.
Not the Pac-12.
Still getting used to that one. Georgia, champions of the SEC. But how many games did they lose in the SEC? 2. They lost to Tennessee, Alabama. Okay. Boise State, champions out of
Mountain West.
But they're the 4 seed, or they're the 3 seed.
They're the 3 seed.
Okay. And Arizona State, champions
of the Big 12. Again, not the Pac-12.
See? And this guy's the college football guy. All right, let's start. Let's work from 4 down. Arizona State, who you got?
This was almost impossible to come up with one that's like completely equivalent because Arizona State was so bad last year, but I picked the Orlando Magic.
Okay.
Mostly because of Cam Scatterbo. And he's kind of, when he's healthy, they're Paolo Banchero. And I think if you asked, and we've said this a couple of times, but I think if you asked a casual NBA fan, I had to go back and look to see if the Magic actually made the playoffs last year.
They did.
And
They lost in 7.
They played the Cavs.
To the Cavs.
But I think if you asked another casual NBA fan, they'd have no idea.
That whole series was on NBA TV.
Same with if you ask an average college football fan or average football fan and they say, how did Arizona State?
They'd say they won the Pac-12.
Exactly. And so I think that's kind of
that has 2 teams.
The comparison is the 1-to-1 where if you ask your casual fan about these 2 teams, they don't know. But then if you watch them, you look at Cam Scatterbo, who I think finished 5th in Heisman voting. He's one of the most fun players in the country to watch, just a bruising running back. And then you talk about Paolo Banchero, who's one of the most fun players, most entertaining watches in the NBA.
Apparently he is nowhere near coming back, which is terrible.
Yeah, I think that's kind of your 1-to-1.
Okay.
But the Magic obviously weren't awful last year, like Arizona State.
But I think that they're on the scene. You had used the Rockets earlier. I used the Rockets for Arizona State because I think the question is for Arizona State. It's what are you doing here? Nobody expected this at all. The Rockets won 41 games last year. They lose 41 games as well. And I think it's more from if you drill down and you're an NBA fan, you knew, hey, the Rockets are going to be a decent team, but good head coach in both, but they've overperformed. But if you drill down, it's a good team, and we're going to see what they do with the opportunity that they've earned to now go into this playoff structure. But also, an early exit would not surprise anybody, right? Arizona State loses their first game.
Yeah.
Who would they play? Who would it be slated to? Is the bracket down? They would play either Texas, Clemson.
Yeah, they play Texas, Clemson.
Texas, Clemson
doesn't reseed.
Winner. Okay. So
nice draw for Texas.
Yeah. All right, let's go 3 seed Boise State. This one I think it was the hardest for me.
This one was the easiest for me.
What do you got?
Because who in the NBA is that one team who has a guy where you say if he's not on tonight, and maybe there's a few, but to me there's one that sticks out.
The Nuggets.
The Nuggets.
Yeah.
Where Ashton Genty is the Nikola Jokic of Boise State. And if you watch Boise State, they still have strong defense. It's not like he's just the one guy and they have nothing
I didn't
else.
think of it this way.
They're
I
a really
that.
solid team, but nobody stopped Ashton Genty this year. But if they play whoever in the next game or throughout the playoff and Genty has 75 yards rushing, do you think Boise State's going to win that game? Like if Jokic plays bad.
No, I mean Denver's
they're not
going to
win that game.
Who would Boise State? What's the draw?
I think it's Penn State SMU.
Oh, that a Boise State SMU that gives
Boise State, Penn State.
Yeah, and this it's going to be the was it much as we've seen. Here's where I like the comp set too. Was the Heisman? I'm a Redditor for NBA. I follow college football on Reddit. It felt like the Heisman conversation was very toxic this year, much as akin to what the Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and what the MVP conversation in the NBA has turned into. Very toxic.
It was awful. It was terrible. And it was,
And they both had great cases.
They had two of the best seasons of all time. And you know how we are. We grew up in Boulder, and if it's not Ohio State for me, it's CU. I'm a big CU Travis Hunter guy, but Ashton Genty had an absolutely amazing season. And if he would have won the Heisman, he would have been completely deserving of it, just like Travis Hunter was. Who's the NBA equivalent to Deion Sanders? Because it wasn't about Travis Hunter. It was about Deion and people not liking him and kind of that. Everything with Colorado has transferred from Deion to just not liking him.
I don't know if there's a coach, maybe Pat Riley back when Pat Riley was still coaching. But
that's because
there isn't a coach that has that type of moxie.
Hunter on his own is everybody loves him. He's fine. But the fact that he plays for Colorado and he has that connection, that's really where it came from. But the Heisman race. But I think that's everything now. Yeah. It's just people draw their battle lines, and it is what it is.
I'm not even, I think your Boise State nailed it. So I said the Cavs, but that's not even worth going into mine because yours was so good. All right, number 2 seed, Georgia. Who you got?
I said the Milwaukee Bucks.
Milwaukee Bucks. I felt like this one was a layup. Why'd you say the Bucks?
I said the Bucks, and maybe you'll say your team, and I'll reconsider. I said the Bucks because if you go into a series or a game with the Bucks, the main thing you have to fear is Giannis. And I know they got Dame now, and it's not like not like Giannis is the only person. There's still Chris Middleton when he comes back and he's healthy. But you fear him the most. If you're any coach, any team, any program, doesn't matter how flaky or wobbly George has been, you got Kirby Smart looking on that other sideline right towards you. And
he's the guy
with Nick Saban gone,
right?
He is the guy. And in a one-game scenario, I don't want to have to go up against Kirby Smart because I know that he's going to manage the game well. I know he's going to play situational
Texas has been
well.
the better. Could have won both times, but they look like they're not convinced. And I don't know if Sark is convinced that he feels he can beat, and his team feels that they can beat Georgia.
Situational football is the most important thing, whether it's college or the NFL talent.
It amazes me that he's kept that together, too, with the amount of stuff that Georgia's had off the field.
Well, and they're going to have to play pretty much the playoffs without Carson Beck.
Yeah.
So if there's one guy that can do it, it's Kirby Smart.
Kirby's the Giannis. All right, and I like that. I said the Celtics, and I just defending champs, legacy brand. They're in the driver's seat. I think the Celtics are in the driver's seat to do it again, but they're not flawless. I don't think that it's a slam dunk. It would be a surprise if Georgia doesn't win, and it would be a surprise if the Celtics don't win. But I don't think it's going to be earth shattering.
If Georgia had if Beck was played healthy, kind of what to his potential and what the talk was coming into the season, I would have said the Celtics because that was the one team I looked at and said, okay, well Michigan.
They've been so shaky.
Michigan isn't in the playoff, and they're the defending champs. Celtics are the defending champs.
Yeah.
But if Georgia had that kind of one-star guy that they've had in the past, I'd say definitely spot on.
Okay, so one team left, and this is the 1 seed within the college football playoff. Oregon. Who you got?
I said the Oklahoma City Thunder.
So did I. Why did you say the Thunder?
They're listening to Season 3's kind of the thing that you keep harping on about the Thunder is that they don't play down to anybody.
No,
they're always
about their business.
They're about their business. They take care of business.
Saw that tonight against the Magic.
Doesn't matter who they've played. Some of the games have been close, just like Oregon's win over Ohio State was a very close shave. But for the most part, Oregon's kind of just handled their business all season. They're undefeated, and they're a team that when I look at them, Are there spots here and there where you could say, yeah, we could take advantage of that? Maybe, sure, there are on any football team. But there's no real spot where you say, that's the weakness, that's where we exploit. Same with the Thunder. Can you beat them if you play a pretty good game? 100%.
Yeah.
But there isn't one spot for the Thunder where you say, we're going after that guy, we're attacking that guy, and we're going to do it all night, and that's how we're going to beat him. And that's kind of where they get their advantage, I think, is just being solid across the board.
I had wrote fun, trendy, and hip. We know that Oregon with their uniforms, they go fast. There's still that stigma. People talk a lot about, I think, both the Thunder and Oregon, but I always question, have they actually watched them? They talk about them. They're one of those teams where people talk about them, but it's like, well, tell me about them. And here was where I thought the comp was really very similar. Oregon and both Oklahoma City, they've been to a title game, but they haven't won. The Thunder went to, and you're an old Sonics fan, so but we won't go there. The Thunder went to the title, lost to Miami. Oregon went to the title, lost to Ohio State. Better days for you and the Ohio State fan base. But there's no hardware in the shelf for either of these franchises
That's the
yet.
next step.
And the expectation for the Thunder this year, this is a team that is the favorite to win the West. They have the best record in the West right now. And Oregon, the expectation is there. Is Oregon clearly the favorite in this college football playoff?
I would say so, in my personal opinion, because they've shown the least amount of weaknesses. And that's just what I keep coming back to is you can't, what's the saying? You can't win until you stop yourself from losing. And that's what Oregon has done all season long. And there's been, moments in the Big Ten championship or whatever.
And that's also what the Thunder do.
They slip a little bit, but ultimately they make the play. They don't do anything stupid. They force their opponent into bad situations, and they take advantage of them. They're well coached. Dan Lanning has done a really nice job of finding his spots to be aggressive.
Dan Lanning, Mark Dagnall, there's
he'll get a little too aggressive sometimes, but I think the players love it because they know that he's not coaching scared. And that's where I think he's kind of angling to be in that Kirby Smart conversation now that Nick Saban is gone.
This is a big year expectation-wise. All right, final thing. Who's your pick to win the playoff?
I've said it all year, and I wavered, and then I kind of came back to it. I'm not picking against Kirby Smart.
You've said Georgia.
And
you have said Georgia.
And I don't feel confident.
If Texas gets a
especially
third
with
shot,
the quarterback injury.
If they get a third shot of Texas, can they beat them?
Yeah,
would
they can beat
Would they beat them? Do you think Texas has convinced themselves they can beat them? Could Texas beat Oregon?
I think Texas can beat Oregon. I think Texas can beat anybody. I think that Ohio State could get hot if Ryan Day really is.
I don't believe in Will Howard. I think he's good, but I don't think he's good enough.
I don't think he's good enough either, but for them, they have arguably the best defense in the country. You can make cases, I think, for a lot of these teams. What if Ashton Genty just can't be stopped by anybody? He ran for over 250 yards against Oregon.
Jokic,
so maybe this is his Jokic season. So I think with a lot of these teams, you can make the case, but I don't feel great about it. But that was my pick at the start of the season.
All
and
right.
Without a quarterback, I think Kirby Smart cements his legacy as not just the guy that came after Saban, but this is the guy that's on a similar path to Nick Saban.
This would be third?
This would be his third in 4 years.
Wow.
So I'm rolling with the Dogs.
Okay. So college football playoff begins Friday, Saturday. That is your breakdown. College football playoff teams. Anything else you want to say on Two Stripes?
Go to 2stripesCPD.com for all your college football content. I got throwback highlights coming as soon as the season is over, takeaways from the playoff, hits of the week videos, hits of the year video coming out.
What season 3's is to the NBA, Two Stripes, that's the blueprint. It's got there.
And then the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Colton Denning. That's where
I'll put everything down
all
below.
the highlights live. Throwback highlights, Travis Hunter career highlight reel coming soon, and then a lot of really awesome throwback highlight reels, which are kind of my special. And new episodes of Worst Game Ever.
There we go. All right. Two Stripes, Colton, Tyler. That is season 3's for the week. We will be off until Sunday. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this and enjoy your weekend. We will see you on the flip side. Peace.